right, in this video, we're going to show how we put this segmented vessel together. A previous video showed the two feature rings. So in this video, we're going to show how we made some of the other rings. I'm not going to show every one of them because you've seen one ring being put together. You've seen them all for the most part. So I might show a couple, but that's about it. So then we're going to go ahead and stack the rings together and put it on the lathe and turn it into our shape here. So please stay tuned. I hope you enjoy the video. Well, every segmented project should start with a plan, and this is mine for this project. What I've got is I've drawn the shape out that I want for the project. These are the rings. It only shows, you can't see it, but it only shows 21 rings. I added a bloodwood ring on top and bottom of this upper feature ring, so that wasn't on the plan. So that added 2 more rings, so it makes it 23. What I did was I laid these things out. I started the ring, numbered the rings from the bottom. I don't know, you could start from the top or bottom. I guess it'll make a difference. This next column is the diameter, the number of segments. This is the segment length. This is the total length of the piece of wood I need. And this is segment width and the angle and then the thickness that I want. And the last column is the material that's made out of. I always make myself a little sketch here so I don't forget the difference between segment length and segment width, so it just helps me remember which one is which. So so anyway, we got a bunch of mesquite rings. The bottom is a bloodwood. Got some maple mixed in. Got the porthole ring here in the center, and then the sunrise ring up here at the top. So we'll refer back to the plan as I start turning these things to make sure that we get what we want. The bottom is going to be move it up here a little bit. The bottom's going to be a floating disc. It's going to have a rabbet cut in the bottom piece, and then a disc put in there, and then the number 2 ring will actually hold that into the rabbet. So we got to make sure we don't mess that up when we're doing it. So I got the plan, I got the wood, I got the lathe, so we're all ready to go. So let's see what happens next. Well, here I'm just cutting down some stock for a ring. I generally cut the widest ring first, and that way I can use any leftover pieces for some of the narrower rings. So this is just some leftover that I had from previous rings. We'll cut down into the proper size for the ring we're making here. Well, after I got the stock ripped to width, just a matter of cutting it on the sled here. I just cut one and measure it, make sure it's the length that I want. The stock has some varying colors and grain patterns and whatnot, so I'm just using the different pieces and cutting a little from each one so that I can mix them together when I put the ring together, so there won't be any kind of particular pattern or anything. So it's a little from this one and a little from that one until I get the 12 segments that I want. Well, we're getting ready to cut the last segment here for this particular ring. Cutting the segments for all the rings is the same. Was the same setup on the sled, so I'm only going to show it this one time. Well, it's important to knock the fuzzies off of the segments once you get them cut. Don't want to interfere your joint. Here I'm just trying to find the best color match and grain match or whatever for this particular ring. I use the half ring method to glue these up. If the clamp would cooperate with me, I would do a dry fit. It took me a couple of minutes there to get it to cooperate. So I said it's just a half ring method of gluing them up. So I need a little wax paper so I don't glue my ring to the cover I have on top of my table saw. So I like to mark the segment there with a 15. So keep an eye on that one that was closest to me. It seems to go someplace. Took me a minute to figure out what I did wrong, but it disappears when I'm gluing these up. So I'm just using regular Titebond glue here to glue these up. Now's not the time to be skimpy with the glue, so we're just going to fit them all together. Just a matter of getting them placed where we want them, and there you see that 15 I put on there is gone. So when I stood it up backwards from the other the other segments, and that 15 actually wound up on the bottom, but there's no harm done. So they just wipe off any excess glue, make sure they're down flat against the table, wipe the glue off the back. Get ready to be done with that one here. Just check the joints. Oh, there's that 15 that was on the other side, so we'll put that there. And I'll write that on there. I like to write the time on there that I glued it up so I know how long to let it wait before for the glue to dry. Well, I'm one lucky woodworker that I have a drum sander to help me flatten these rings. Not required, of course. You can certainly do it on the lathe with a scraper and a gouge and a sanding block, but it sure does make life easy. Alright, it's taken a long time, but I finally got all the rings done, all the feature rings done, and everything ready to go on the lathe. This bowl has 23 rings, counting the 2 feature rings. Some of the rings stacked up there will actually be split into 2, so there's not 23 stacked up there. So I have the top ring and the bottom ring glued to waste blocks already. I have the feature ring ready to turn round, and the smaller feature ring ready to turn round. So like I say, starting with the rough stock and roughing this all out and doing everything, it's taken me, I don't know, I probably have more than 75 hours in this thing already, and I haven't put anything on the lathe yet. So it should go quicker now that we're getting ready to put the stuff on the lathe and do some turning. So let's go ahead and move to the lathe and see if we can put this thing together. Here I'm gluing the bottom ring to a waste block. I have a waste block on a screw chuck, a piece of plywood screwed to it, or glued to it. I'm just using Titebond glue and my built-in spreader to put this piece onto the waste block. So we'll use a tailstock to center it up, and then wipe off any excess glue, and then just let it glue dry. Here I'm just taking off the piece of plywood on the bottom on the #1 ring. I use a pointed skew to remove a little bit of the plywood, and then take a gouge and round the ring off a little bit. Once I get that rounded, then I'll go ahead and maybe take a scraper. And I don't always do it the same way every time, but this time I took a scraper and cleaned it up. So then I use the point of that skew just to take the plywood down to where it is no longer glued to the ring, and then the centerpiece pops out. There's plenty of ways to do it. This just happens to be that way that works for me. After I get that plywood off, there's usually some pieces left on, so I just use a scraper to clean it up. There was a little bit of piece left there. Use a scraper till I get it all the plywood gone and get it nice and flat, and then I'll use the sanding board with some 100 grit sandpaper attached to it. I pretty much treat all the rings the same way, so I'm not going to show too many more of them, if any at all. So it's just the way that I happen to clean these things up and build them. Like I said, there's more than one way of doing it, and there's as many ways as there are woodworkers, I suppose. So this happens to be my way. For the bottom of our vessel, we're going to use a floating disc. What I have is a piece of curly maple. Doesn't have a lot of curl in it, but it's got some in it. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a rabbet and fit this in here. I turned this down, as you've seen in a previous video. I turned this down, so this is basically out of the way. It's deeper than the what we're going to need for our disc. Most of this will be turned away once we flip the bowl around. So I wanted to leave as much as I could there to leave it connected to the waste block. So I didn't want to turn all that away. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn this rabbet. The disc is about 3/16 of an inch thick. I've sanded everything, and we're going to. This measurement is 4.5. The disc is 4 3/4. So we need to go out about 1/8 of an inch or so on each side. So we're going to go ahead and mark that, and then we're going to just it'll be a trial and error kind of thing to get it to the depth that we want. So let's see. I'll mark this off here. See if that's about 4 3/4, which it should be. Yep, so we'll just go ahead and start taking little bits of wood away until we get to the depth we want. I set my calipers to the thickness of the bowl, and then I got this little measurement here. I'm going to use that to see when I get close, and then we'll just keep test fitting it. Let's fit the disc in it, see if we got it to the... That's pretty close. I want it a little bit bigger than the disc so that I can allow for some wood movement. So I'm going to widen that out a little bit more. Alright, let's see how we're doing here. Alright, I got the diameter I want. It's still got to go a little bit more than depth. All right. Well, that feels good. It's nice and even all around. So now they got that done, we'll go ahead and get ready and glue this in here. I'm ready to glue this disc into the bottom of the into our bottom ring. I put some tape on here to keep me reminded of where the grain direction is. So all I want to do is put a little bit of glue on this side and this side, and that way the disc will have room to expand this way, because this is the grain goes this way, so it needs to expand like that. What I did was I took some paraffin wax and I just rubbed it around the edges, trying to keep any glue from sticking to anywhere I don't want it to. So the edge underneath the where the tape is there's no wax, so we can go ahead and glue this on. What I'm going to use, I'm just going to use some White Elmer's glue all. It dries clear, which if some glue gets to where I don't want it to go, then it shouldn't show up, not like the Titebond or some of the others. I just got some on a little piece of wood here. It doesn't make any difference where we put it on the ring. That's not going to make a difference. So we'll just take a little bit of glue and we'll put it right in here. I don't want a lot because I don't want a lot of squeeze out. And it just needs to hold it so that the thing doesn't move around or rattle around in the bottom of the. So we'll put it across over here. So just a little bit in there is all we need. That might be a little too much. No, I think that's good. Well, I got this little piece of tape on here to help me hold this thing as I drop it in there. So we'll just put it down in there. Center it up where we want it. All right. And that's pretty much all there is to that. That little bit of glue will hold that in there. It'll dry. And then we'll be good to go. I might put a clamp on it just to make sure that it stays where it's supposed to. Let's see. I got a couple of little clamps here, so we'll put them on there. And get it on there. All right, there's one. Okay, there we go. Those clamps are holding it enough to hold that down. So we'll let that dry, and then I'm going to glue the number 2 ring on top of this, and that'll help hold it in there as well. To get the piece of maple that I need for the number 2 ring to hold the disc in place, I need to split this piece, which is glued to the top piece of bloodwood. So I'm going to split this maple ring in half. Round it off a little bit, then I'm just going to use a parting tool to mark the spot, and then I'll finish cutting it with a saw. Well, I've flattened the number 2 ring, and here I'm just using a scraper. I marked the diameter, the inside diameter that I want this ring to be to hold the disc in place. So I'm just cleaning out some waste wood with the scraper so I can go ahead and glue it to the number 1 ring. Here's the number 1 ring with some glue on it. I'm going to put it back on the lathe. I got the disc glued into the center of it, so I'm going to take the number 2 ring and put it up there. Need to find my marks so everything lines up the way it's supposed to be. Find a little mark there, find a mark on number 2 ring. Just use a little rub joint to rub the two together to get them to stick, and then put a little pressure on it with the tailstock and let them go until the glue dries. Well, I'm back on the top ring now. This is that piece of maple that we split in a previous clip. I'm just cleaning it up with the scraper and getting it nice and flat so it's be ready to glue the next ring on. Once I got the ring flat, I just took a 1/2-inch bowl gouge and cleaned up some of the inside of the rings. Not required, but it makes it a little bit easier later on in the project. I'm at the point on the top assembly where I need the feature ring, so I have it on the lathe. I need to round it out, so I'm using a 1/2-inch bowl gouge to clean it up. The ring was plenty wide and plenty thick, so I got plenty of stock to work with here. So we'll just get it nice and round, and then we'll get ready to glue it onto the top assembly. Alright, I got the feature ring all flattened out, so go ahead and put some glue on it. As I said before, it's not time to get skimpy with the glue, so we're gonna glue that up. On the top assembly there, I've added another bloodwood ring, which is the top part of this feature ring. So I added a bloodwood ring onto the maple that was on there earlier. So we'll just go ahead and rub it a little bit, though, using the tape tool. Actually align making my alignment where I want the ring to finish. So I've gone ahead and put some clamps on it. Clamps kind of pull it out of alignment there, so I had to keep checking it to make sure that it stayed where I wanted it. And once we got it, it was good to go. Well, we're back on the bottom assembly now. This is the 3 and 4 ring glued to the bottom. Just trying to knock off some of the corners on the insides of the rings. It makes it a little bit easier, especially as the bowl gets a little bigger and it's harder to get down inside there. As you can see in the bottom piece there on the maple piece, I put a few circles just for some visual interest. When you're looking into the bowl, you'll look down and see those. So just something to make it a little bit more interesting when you look inside there. So I'll try a little scraping here once I use the gouge, so we'll scrape it a little bit. And the idea is just to get it to rough shape at this point. That's all we're going to do. Well, here we're gluing together a couple of larger rings. This is the number 7 and number 8 ring. I like to glue them two together. Makes things go a little bit faster. So I'll glue these two together, and then while they're drying, I can glue some others together and kind of make some sub-assemblies. So the rings are starting to get quite a bit larger now once we're getting into the center, toward the center section of the bowl. So just a little rub joint, and this thing's big enough that the tailstock's really not put that good of pressure on it, so I'm going to go ahead and put some clamps on it to hold it where I want it. I've come to the point in the bottom assembly when I need to glue on the feature ring, so I need to try and round it out a little bit here. It's kind of nerve-wracking turning this. I have a lot of work in it at this point, and I really don't want to mess it up. So when you're cutting through those portholes, you're cutting more air than anything. So I just took it slow, and actually it came out all right. What I need to do is to knock off some of the inside of this feature ring. It's going to be difficult to do it as it gets glued onto the piece. So what I did, I marked a line there which is deeper than the deepest part of my portholes, which are 1 1/8 inches deep. So it's a little bit deeper than that. So I'll turn down to the line, and that way I'm assured not to go through the bottom of the porthole, which at this point would be pretty much be disaster for this ring, and that's the last thing I want to do. So if I stay on the right-hand side of the line, I'm good to go. Right, at this point I've glued a bloodwood ring and a maple ring onto the bottom part of our feature ring. They were both thicker rings that I split with the saw like I showed earlier, and here I'm just going to clean this maple ring up, get it flat, and then get it ready to glue the next piece on. I just kept going at the maple ring until I got it down to 1/8 of an inch is what I wanted for this particular ring. The bloodwood ring is a little thicker at 3/16 of an inch, but the maple sure does turn nice. Get nice shavings coming off of it. Well, that's part one of how I put this segmented turning together. It was a long video, so I needed to break it into a couple of different pieces. So I hope you enjoyed this first part, and I hope you stay tuned for the second part.